Hey, this is Travis. In the last video, we talked about Web3 tokens, the two main categories of these tokens and their use cases. And now in this video, we're going to continue and we're going to talk about token launches and tokenomics. Let's get into it. Tokenomics is short for token economics, and this has to do with the monetary policy of the Web3 token. Since these are digital assets, we can program any monetary policy into the Web3 token. So Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million Bitcoin. Ether is different. It is an inflationary token, but there are other economics that are being built into it, such as the burning of Ether fees. And this could make the Ether cryptocurrency actually deflationary. So when we talk about token economics, it's really just several things. Is it fixed supply or is it inflationary? If it's fixed supply, what is the total cap? So as you can see right here, this is HNT or Helium Network Token. It has a fixed max supply of 223 million HNT. And then also the second thing to think about is the inflation or issuance schedule of a token. So you can see that the inflation rate of HNT, it starts relatively high and then decreases over time to where it will stop issuing HNT after about 50 years from the Helium project launch. So this is just some things to understand about tokenomics. Something else to think about is that this monetary policy is programmed into these tokens, and they really will never change over time. This is what gives these tokens an investment narrative. If the creators of the tokens can just arbitrarily change the issuance or change it from a fixed supply to an inflationary currency, then that would kind of defeat the purpose of trusting in these tokens and investing in them. So a lot of the smart contract blockchains that we've talked about, Ethereum, Polkadot, Cardano, Kusama, I don't need to name all the others, Solana, these all have their own utility token, right? Ethereum has Ether, and users spend that Ether to get access to the dApps built on Ethereum. Also, smart contract blockchains allow third-party developers to come in and issue their own tokens. So let's say I have a dApp and I want to have an accompanying token with whatever utility I want to program into it. I can launch this with a smart contract on these blockchains. And then within that smart contract, I can define this Web3 token's monetary policy. And this is why we see tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies exist today, because it's really open to the public for anyone to issue a token. Now, often what these Web3 projects do is they'll create a website and they're going to publish a white paper that explains the motivation for their Web3 project. And then also it really always comes down to what is the token going to do and what is the monetary policy. This is where investors can come in and start purchasing this token to invest in the crypto network or in a decentralized app, whatever the Web3 project may be. So they create the website, they have a white paper discussing their approach to it, and always there's going to be some mention of a Web3 token, specifically how this token gets distributed to the stakeholders. Up until now, we've seen these Web3 tokens really be used a lot for a fundraising mechanism, right? This project starts with potentially zero capital as just an early stage startup, and then they can create this token and then sell it to the public or private investors to get this money and use some initial money to fund the development of the project. So we've seen a lot of projects release tokens even before there's a working product to try to get the capital necessary to develop that Web3 project. And then also, and by the way, when they launch a token, these are often called crowdsales when they are offered to public investors or initial coin offerings, right? ICOs. And there was a large explosion of ICOs in 2017 on the Ethereum blockchain. This, of course, is very novel, what Web3 tokens allow for. It allows for essentially real-time venture capital investing by retail investors. Normally, venture capital investing would only be available to accredited investors in Series A, B, and C funding rounds. But now almost anybody with an internet connection can go in and purchase these Web3 tokens in public crowd sales. This is a really effective funding mechanism for Web3 projects. And it is revolutionizing venture capital investing because it's like this real-time price feed of an early-stage startup, which has never happened before. Venture capital investments typically are illiquid in that accredited investors come in, they will make an initial investment in this project, but it could take years until that project creates the demand so that these investors can cash out. That's typically how VC funding goes, but in this crazy, wacky world of Web3, we create these Web3 tokens, and then there are these real-time price feeds that are just basically people are speculating on whether or not the crypto network is going to be successful. So as I said, this has allowed for a lot of money to flow into the Web3 ecosystem to fund the development of the ecosystem. It has democratized venture capital investing to retail investors, but there are some downsides to these token launches or these crowd sales. The first is that, and the most obvious is probably scam tokens. So if anyone can deploy a token to the blockchain, then anyone can create a website, create a white paper, and they can hype it on social media. And even if they have no intention of following through on this project, they can still generate demand for their token, and that increases the token price on people speculating on it. And then the founding team, or really the scammers, can then dump their token supply on the network. They can sell as much of it as possible to extract all the value out of that token. So they didn't have an intent to complete any project in the first place, and all the investors are left holding a coin with no real project backing it, right? So it essentially is worthless, and they've lost their money. And this is something called a rug pull. And then the token launch itself can be controversial because it depends how the Web3 project allows for their token to be purchased, right? Is it available to a wide range of retail investors so that network's token gets distributed across many people? Or is it just a private sale where large big money investors like venture capitalists only have the opportunity to purchase that token? So let's juxtapose a couple things, right? So Ethereum launched a crowd sale of 80% of its initial 72 million ETH supply in 2014 to the general public. So public investors in 2014 could buy Ether at the ground level, and you can see that the project really, the majority of the Ether token supply is held by investors, around 83%. Now let us juxtapose this to, let me go up here to search and find Solana blockchain, which has come under criticism because they led Series A, B, and C funding rounds with venture capital investors. So 15.86% to seed round investors. And I believe these were all private sales, and there were very few. There were not a large, not much Solana token was available for public consumption. Only 1.6% to public auction sale investors, and then the vast majority was given to private investors. So this type of token sale calls into question the true decentralization of the Web3 crypto network. If a large portion of the crypto network's token is held by several single entities, it kind of goes against the Web3 decentralized ethos. that we are going to include all the retail investors and everyone in the growth of this network. Really, we're now concentrating power in big private investors again, who are going to have a lot of say in how the network develops in the future, especially with these governance protocols that blockchains are building in now. So we can see in this image right here how most of the smart contract layer 1 blockchains in existence today have decided to distribute their native utility tokens. As we saw, Ethereum, the vast majority went into a public sale. Binance did 50-50, where 50% of the token went to insiders such as the founding team. And you can see the breakout here, right? Now, the Web3 ethos would say that the greater the portion of this blue region, the better, because it's allowing more of the public to get financially involved in this product, and it's going to decentralize the ownership of the crypto network. That's the Web3 ethos. I'm not trying to judge here. I think that this is all experimental, and it's difficult to say what is best at the end of the day in terms of creating a sustainable Web3 crypto network over decades. We simply don't know what that model looks like. So if that means giving slightly more power to subject matter experts and organizations and foundations that are going to promote the sustained usage of this crypto network, then I think there is an argument to be made there. So I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to come out as judgmental on any of this. Just understand that this is a big controversial point right now in Web3, and these are the arguments for and against it. I do want to mention an alternative to a crowd sale or to private investing rounds, and this is called a fair launch. And perhaps the best example of a fair launch is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto, some anonymous person, in 2009, and ever since then, the protocol has been running, and miners on Bitcoin have been mining the Bitcoin cryptocurrency. There was no pre-allocation of Bitcoin. There was no crowd sale of Bitcoin in the beginning to public or private investors to raise funds for it. It's just the crypto network was developed. It was rolled out for free. Miners started mining Bitcoin, and the supply of Bitcoin grew from there. And this is considered a fair launch. Also, Yearn Finance is another example of a fair launch. They created 30,000 YFI tokens and distributed those tokens to their early investor groups. So nothing was held by the founding team or were sold to anybody. They were simply what is called airdropped to the early adopters of the Yearn protocol. So these are two examples of what a fair launch is. And this is important in the grand scheme of things because in the next video, we're talking about SEC regulation. When a token is pre-mined or pre-allocated for a crowd sale or for a private funding sale, the SEC considers this a sale or an offering of unregistered securities if they're not security tokens. So if we're thinking about the ethos of Web3, that of decentralized inclusivity, the best thing would be to have a fair launch, so no pre-allocations of tokens. The next best thing would be to have a crowd sale that distributes a very significant amount of the crypto network's tokens to as vast amount of people as possible. So make it a public sale and decentralize the token ownership for as much as possible. And then the last thing in terms of Web3 ethos, something that is controversial now in this ecosystem, is having the token be pre-allocated and large amounts of it sold to big money investors like venture capital firms. This is important because this has to do with SEC regulation. The SEC, it seems to be okay with fair launches, but when you start getting into pre-allocations of tokens and crowd sales, this looks to the SEC as offerings of unregistered securities. And in the next several years, the SEC has the intention of regulating these sales. So these token launches could change drastically in the coming years. And so the funding mechanisms for Web3 could change as a result of all of this regulation to come. So let's talk about that in the next video. Thank you.